Location, the lab. Quentin only has 24 hours to sell his car. Is that even possible? He goes to Carvana.com.
What is this, a movie trailer?
He ignores the doubters, enters his license plate. Wow, that's a great offer. The car is sold, but will Carvana pick it up in time for...
They'll literally pick it up tomorrow morning. Done with the dramatics?
Car selling in record time.
Save your time. Go to Carvana.com and sell your car today. Pickup fees may apply.
Hello and welcome to Talk the Block, the show where we discuss the hit HGTV show Rock the Block. And here is your veteran podcast team, Amy and Steven. I'm Amy, and here's my wonderful co-host, Steven.
Yeah.
Steven, how are you doing today?
I feel like a veteran. Although, I'm be honest with you, having just watched that show for the second time, which is how we do it, a little behind the scenes. We watch it just for enjoyment, and then later on we go back and we watch it and take notes and stuff like that. And the 2-hour episode, boy, that wore me out. I mean, all those people that were doing the work talking about them being tired, they don't know what tired is.
Yeah, that's right. Being a podcaster for the show is way harder than being a
I'm
contestant.
taking notes and watching TV. I don't know how you ate a snack.
Hey, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about episode 1, which kicks off season 6 of Rock the Block. Here we are outside of Salt Lake City. It looks like a completely undeveloped desert area, but Stephen assures me that there's actually a thriving community nearby. And we have 4 pretty big houses, 550... 5,500 square feet, sorry.
Big 550 square foot houses
It's time for
crammed
Rock the
into
Tiny
an acre.
Block. Yeah, no.
Crammed onto that acre.
5,500 square feet.
There's 6-story houses, 500 square feet. There's only room for a staircase.
Anyway, so they are 5,500 square feet,
Woo-hoo.
each on an acre of land.
An acre of land, yeah, make a big deal of it's the biggest lot they've got, which I guess it is.
Yeah, so we'll see this coming up in the exciting Backyard Challenge, which some teams will have about 2 cents to spend on, but we'll get to that later.
Well, if they win every week, they'll have an additional 15,000 by then. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, sorry. I forgot about the huge prize money on the show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So anyway,
they can buy a what did that team do last year, Brian, and the watercraft? They get a personal watercraft to sit out in their little above ground pool.
Anyway, so we did a preview show, but if you missed our preview show, we should probably just run through who the veteran and rookie teams are this week. And it's definitely they are leaning into the veteran versus rookie theme. All the interviews would be like as a veteran or as a rookie, or as Chelsea kept saying, I don't feel like a rookie. I belong here. So
yeah. Yeah, and I think, Kemohai and Tristan, their point being, and the numbers show it, is that they have done a lot of house renovations. I think it's over 150. But as Ty pointed out, never on TV.
Well, and never on Rock the Block.
Rock the Block.
Rock
Never
the
in a
Block
competition
is a different
show.
challenge,
Yeah, right.
yes.
That's a whole different deal, yeah.
So we have 2 rookie teams. One is Chelsea and Cole from Down Home Fab, and the second is Kemohai and Tristan from Renovation Aloha.
Yep.
And then our 2 veteran teams are Allison Victoria and Michelle Smith-Boyd. And Michelle Smith-Boyd was part of the winning team in Colorado, as we know. And then our second veteran team is Jonathan and Jordan Knight. known for their role in the New Kids on the Block.
Right. And Jonathan has a renovation show called Farmhouse Fixer. And he was also on him and his co-host, co-partner, whatever, I don't know what they call each other, on Farmhouse Fixer. We're in season 4 where Michelle won. So, so they know each other.
Yeah. And we'll go into more depth in the teams as we talk about their designs, but I think from the beginning, it's pretty clear that the team to beat is Allison and Michelle, a former winner, 2-time veteran. And Allison has won both of the seasons she was on. She won the kitchen competition.
Yeah. And I guess we'll get into it. I disagree with your statement. I think that they were set up to be the team to beat, and I think everybody even commented on they're the team to beat. But I kind of feel like they messed up this week.
Interesting take.
Yeah, I just think that when the numbers came rolling in, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, these guys. Well, I guess kind of giving it a little away, spend half their budget on one. Look at it here. There's a 3-story house, 550 square feet, 5,500 square feet, and they blew half their budget on something that might be, I don't know, 400 square feet. I mean, granted, it's an important square feet, but maybe it's bigger than that. But wow, I think they really. I'm wondering. I'm really wondering.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this plays out as we go forward. But just a little bit more about how the show's set up this year. In addition to the vets and rookies theme, that's also going to impact the prize money. So if you're a veteran team and you win that week, you get $3,000 to spend in next week's renovation, and your co-team, your co-veteran team or co-rookie team gets $1,500. So they're all competing against each other, but there is a little bit of an incentive for the vets to help the vets and the rookies to help the rookies. Yeah,
so a little bit of alliance going on there. And yeah, I think the other really good thing here is, last season it was an escalating amount of money per week, which, then wound up with, I can't even remember, Brian and Steph, was Steph, Brian, whoever, the team getting like this huge amount of money when all they were doing was like, I don't know, painting bricks on the front of the house. And so there was nothing to do, so they wound up buying a personal watercraft. So this year, it looks like it's just going to be $3,000 a week, which is, a reasonable amount of money that you can do something with, and it's coming. And so I think that's another good change this season than last season.
Yeah, they're not backfilling all the money in the last weeks when you really don't have anything left to do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So another change for this year is blind judging. So they are not going to be in the houses when the judges come in. None of them like this because I think they feel they can talk their way out of design mistakes. If the judge doesn't like something, they can maybe help the judge see the benefit of it. And so they're all a little nervous about the blind judging.
Yeah, I think the people that seemed the least concerned about that was Kamahai and Tristan, and I think they're justified in preferring that because these TV judges and these TV shows have there's a lot of known quantities between them. Like whoever the judge was, this Burt guy probably knows Allison and Michelle from something, and would know their style, and would not know necessarily Kemawai and Tristan or Chelsea Cole. So that does kind of remove maybe that personal bias towards a designer that you have been on a TV show with or known personally. So I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? They're not just going to pick their friends or pick somebody who, they think should win for whatever reason.
Right.
It'll be purely on how they
Right.
feel when they step into the space.
Yeah.
And so the judging criteria, and Stephen, I honestly can't remember if this is the same or different from last year, is based on 3 criteria: design, added value, and creativity, whatever that means.
I think that's the good point. But I think it is the same last year from week to week. But remember, at the end, no, there was something else. There was something else, and I drawing a blank here. But it was close. I think there was another component to it. But at the end, when it came down to who won the whole shooting match, it was just appraised value.
Yeah, only appraised value.
Yeah, so each week there were a couple other components, but in the end, appraised value.
And that's where I'll just call them Team Aloha, I think has a bit of an advantage because they are very tuned into appraised value and saying everything they're going to do is about increasing the appraised value.
Yeah, and they have a good point. One of the homes that they showed during the show when they were doing the interview with the Team Aloha, yeah, good one, I like that, and was the episode that we saw. Now, if you remember, and it seemed like a lot of the houses that they do on this show are like this. If there is anything still standing in the house, it's a benefit. It's like you walk into this place and you've got to get your tetanus shot. It coming in, going out. There's, very little structure. Things have been eaten away. Animals have been living there. Things have,
generations of animals.
Generations of animals have decided to build condos in there. And so basically the shell isn't worth that much. So if you actually put up a house, you've added value. But yeah, that's what they do. So, I think it's weird for them actually to walk into a structure where the walls aren't about to fall down. Okay. See how they adapt to that as week goes on.
Well, let's dive in a little bit to this week's challenge, shall we? This week, they're going to start with kitchen and dining room like they usually do, but they added a twist and they're going to do the living area as well. I think maybe because this is a 2-hour episode, they wanted to stretch it out a little bit and have more design spaces. So there's really 3 areas at play this week: kitchen, dining room, and living area or great room.
Yeah, I think they had to do that just because of the way the building is laid out. It was all one big room, and you kind of get to decide what do you want to do with it. And so they kind of put the frame around the episode of saying, well, here's this giant room, and you can create these 3 spaces with it. And they had the plumbing for the sink, which was guy Jordan didn't know it was supposedly. What is that? And even though Ty had said, "Hey, it's already plumbed for a sink," but yeah, so they could decide what to do, and they could. I was kind of curious. Last season. Do you remember what Brian's partner name is?
Sarah.
Sarah, thank you. God, oh boy, yeah. Late in the day. Sarah and Brian did not have a dining room, remember? Yeah, they just skipped past that. And it kind of worked for them. So, this the space that they had, they needed to figure out how to configure things in order to make it make sense and call each one something, kitchen, dining, living. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had 2 teams that pretty much kept the spaces as they were. That would be Cole and Chelsea and Jonathan and Jordan. And then the other 2 teams made pretty substantial changes to the layouts. So how do we want to do this? Do we want to start with the 2 teams that pretty much did it as it were and then move on to the teams that changes layout?
Dealer's choice. It's just an overall comment on that. It's interesting to see. You watch some of these TV shows and you're like, oh gosh, here they are. They just renovated the entire 5,000 square feet and it only cost them $1.50. And you're like, well, there's no way. But the thing that's interesting is that the teams that didn't do kind of change where the kitchen was were operating on a budget of 65 grand this week, and the ones that did were operating on a budget of 100.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that was, and they even pointed out, that's something that's a big deal. Well, maybe it's worth it. I mean, so the other ones thought it was worth it, but it was kind of interesting, the dollar amount differences between the two sets of teams that engaged in the different strategies.
Yeah, a substantial difference for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start with John and Jordan, and they're calling their design Modern Farmhouse. So in general, they chose not to move the kitchen. They really focused, I would say the unique feature of their kitchen was a double island. Everyone else did a single island. And Stephen, I am a huge fan of the double island. That's a design element I can't get enough of, right?
If you can't have three, you want two.
That's right. I really want to be the innovator of the triple island. That's what I'm going for.
Just a house that's just island after island after island. Can you imagine if it was just 5,000 square foot, all ranch, and it was just a big island after island?
I'm going to model
islands?
my house after Indonesia.
You could sleep on one of them. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be extra bedding.
So anyway, they went with the double island, a stove cove with lots of stone on it, I guess because Jonathan did that last time and it won for him. So, hey, why fix what's not broken, right? They added a window to the front of the house and added an arch door, which I think was really pretty. And then another design element they did that was really interesting is they did wood on the ceiling throughout, but decided to add beams just in the living room area to sort of separate it from the kitchen. And it was pretty much all one big room. So the separation was from these beams on the kitchen, and they felt that the beams added a little bit of a rustic look, so to speak. So I think those were some of the key features of their design. Anything you would add to that, Stephen?
Yeah, they added a door, which meant they had two doors, and then they arched both of them. The distinction being Cole and Chelsea, they kept the one door. No.
I got it
Cole
and Chelsea arched both.
Oh, that's right. That's called, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
they had a window and an arched door. Yeah.
Right. So John and Jordan had the arched door right there at the end of the dining room table. So if you're sitting at the table, you'd be able to look out through that door. Yeah, I think.
Very woody, very sort of, I would say, calm, warm feel to their kitchen.
Yeah, they had a lot of nice, soft wood elements. It did look very cohesive. It did look very inviting. The one difference was that quote unquote island, the second island, they decided to make rustic. In order to save money, they wanted two islands, but they didn't want to do an island that would be like an island. They made a table and called it an island. And in fact, they put chairs around it. I don't know how you keep calling it an island when it's a table. It clearly looks like a table. It was built like a table, had chairs around it like a table. It had no storage. But it was
the same size as the island,
and if it
and
walks
laid
like
out
a duck
like
and quacks like a duck, it's you call it an island, I guess. But
yeah, that was a little weird.
That was weird. The judge called it an island too, but I guess it was pointed out in the little card that he was given that there was a double island, and I guess he looked at the dining room table and that other farmhouse table and said, "Well, I guess I'll pick one and the other." Been interesting if he got them wrong.
Yeah. So overall, I didn't hate this design. If this was my kitchen, I wouldn't, throw up or anything. I think that actually I liked the kitchen. I'm not a fan of the double island. I was being sarcastic. So I liked the fact that it was a less permanent double island. If that were my house, I probably would have taken out that second double island and just made seating on the single island. But overall, it seemed pretty functional. And did they do the double dishwashers? I can't remember.
No, they did not do double dishwashers.
They did a single dishwasher.
They did single dishwashers. Yeah. The problem, and the teams that did not move their kitchen used the little closet that's about as big as our studio as the pantry. And so it's really small pantry. I saw these people walking in there, and I'm like, if I walked in there, I'm not sure I could get anything out of any of these shelves or whatnot. So it was not a very roomy pantry, but, I guess it was a pantry, a place where you can store stuff. And they did have some, like a cabinet, and then cabinets on below, and then they said some open shelves up above. So it would have been a perfectly fine place to store stuff, but it did look very cramped. Mm-hmm. So that would be the one thing about them that seemed a little odd.
Yeah, I would say the one big advantage of this kitchen, besides being sort of warm and inviting, was that it only cost $65,000. So they had the lowest budget in the end of any team. So while, spoiler alert, they didn't win the kitchen competition, they did save a fair chunk of change that they can put into another space in their house.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they gained anything with that table/second island. Granted, whoever has it, since it's not an island, it's not fixed to the floor, you can move it, but you can make the argument that they wasted some space there that could have been used, something that would have been a little bit more creative or functional.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about the challenge.
We'll talk about that during judging. We'll
talk about that during
save
judging.
that
Okay.
for a surprise.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to Chelsea and Cole. She called the house adorable, which I think is one of her favorite words. She thought the layout was perfect, so she didn't change it. And she's really going for a family house feel, which you could see in the way she built this big banquette with lots of storage underneath, which I thought was really smart for a family house, having all that extra storage in the main living space. However, I think her view of family home means that everything needs to be black. She loves black.
She thinks black is cozy.
Yes.
I didn't get it.
It's either cozy or modern.
Except,
the way to make things modern is to paint everything black, apparently.
Except over the stove, which has to be this glitzy, reflective gold surface that looks interesting.
So, Stephen, I'd like to propose a name for this team.
Yeah.
I see a kitchen and I want it painted black.
Yeah, well, she did. Remember when they were talking about, because one of the things they had to do this week is start work on the exterior. So at some point they all went out there and they all started talking about what they were going to do. And guess what? They're going to make it black too.
I see some siding and I want it painted black.
Yeah, Team Black. That would be not Clint Black, but Team Black.
Or Team Paint It Black, whatever you want to call it.
Well, they didn't paint the appliances, which were also black.
Well, they bought the appliances black. Yeah. So everything.
At least they
black.
didn't go with a black countertop for the island. We have one of those and hate it.
Yes, yeah. She's thinking this is a family kitchen, and I'm thinking no, black is very hard to keep clean. All these black appliances, you'd be wiping them down every 6 seconds. They're going to show all the fingerprints.
Well, she said the opposite. She said that because it was black, you wouldn't have to worry about cleaning it all the time.
No,
and I'm like,
no.
I don't know.
Black
I didn't really
shows,
get their aesthetic. So
I didn't get it. And then just to make sure that you had this dark, moody feel maximized, they decided to take out a window, limiting the light into the house.
Oh, right.
And they did do 2 nice arched doors in the back of the house, but they bought them too short, so they weren't taking full advantage of the view. And again, limiting the light they could have into the house. So I think if you were a family of vampires, this would be probably the perfect house that you would want.
Yeah, it is not clear yet how tall these ceilings are. They have all come in and talked about how tall they are, and I'm not sure, but Jonathan might be at least 6 foot tall, might be a regular sized human being, which is rare on TV. But it's got to be 12-foot ceilings.
Yeah, they're
it's
really
not
tall.
10. They're huge.
Yeah.
Huge. They don't have an elevator. Nobody. Well, that might maybe in the future. they could put in an elevator.
No elevator so far, yes.
Yeah. Well,
And they also had very shiny tile on the hood of the stove, which I wasn't a huge fan of. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of the positives about their space. I mean, there was definitely a lot of storage and a very big kitchen island. So that's nice because people can gather around it, or you have lots of space for cooking. That's kind of like what it is in my sister's home. And, that kind of works in a large size kitchen. So, I mean, all nice materials, new and everything else. It just wasn't really my aesthetic, I would say.
yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm going through my notes. The floor to ceiling cabinets. That was one thing.
That was
nice.
good.
Yeah, that was really good. Also, and they put I guess that's a challenge, but they've got a little wine rack. But the baguette, well, I guess it was painted black too. And then they had this. So I have never heard of a baguette. It's a built-in sofa that goes around your dining room table, as far as I can define it. The table and the chairs that went up to it looked weird. It did not look like it was a match set. So I can't get my head around the fact that they've got this black baguette. I think the storage was fine, and a lot of things that they did were fine, but their focus on things being black really took things away for me from it being attractive or cozy. I mean, we saw last season when that one team wanted to do cozy, and you could get a sense for that, right? But I create a cozy space with 12-foot ceilings, I guess, is a little challenging. But all the use of black, I agree with you when you say it's not my aesthetic. And one of the things I think we talked a little bit about last season was the cost of changing it, right? And I think in this particular case, the cost of changing it would be pretty high. And this was also the team that used a different backsplash color. Is this different backsplash than the material in order to...
No. I think
okay,
that was
yeah.
Team Aloha. Yeah.
Team Aloha, right.
Okay.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, they started out to stay under 65K, and one of the ways they were going to do that was to not move anything, but they did wind up getting escalated to 80K. So they spent $26,000 on the cabinets, $9,200 on the countertop, which is not real surprising, but but they kind of ballooned through this episode from 65 to 80, and no real explanation as to why, but it's hard to say, but they didn't stay in the $65,000 range.
So I guess I'd like to transition to another team that made very specific choices that would be hard to change, but I really liked the choices. And that would be Allison and Michelle, who went with a lot of green in their kitchen. Stephen, what did you think about the green kitchen overall?
Well, I like green. I do like green. And I think the easy for you to say, backsplash was beautiful, really beautiful. I did not care for the green that they used as part of the appliances. So the green in the hoods, it was a kind of a different green with gold accents, and then I think the fridge had a green door, and it was kind of looked a little too lime to me. I tried to want to like it, and I think if they'd gone with maybe a slightly darker green, I don't know what options they had to choose from. This team also had problems getting what they originally going to do, but the green backsplash was beautiful. And and I think the judge made a good point that the green sink and the green cabinet or countertop wasn't a good choice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought it was beautiful too, but it's not necessarily everybody's taste. So they made specific design choices around the green.
Right.
They did a few things, though, that I think would be smart that I thought were super smart design decisions outside of the color. So number one, they actually added a window behind the sink.
Right.
So if you were sitting there doing dishes, you could look outside of the view and enjoy that. And they had the double dishwashers on either side of the sink.
Double dishwashers.
So that was really smart for that size of a kitchen.
Double oven.
Yeah, double oven. So definitely made for big family gatherings, lots of hosting. And then the second thing they did that I loved was they added an arch between the living space and the kitchen. So it was still open, but it felt like the spaces were defined, and it kind of softened the space. And I thought that was a beautiful decision. It just made the space seem bigger and fresher. And then the third decision, probably my favorite thing they did, is that they just wiped out the wall to the balcony and made that a whole wall of doors. So they opened that up, really opening up the view and the light. And I think that also made it feel bigger, right? Because as they said, it sort of extended the living room into the balcony, right? So it's all now one space that you can have. So those three decisions I thought were really, super smart structural flow decisions. I love the green. Not everybody's going to love the green, but and they also did a brass island, which I thought was really beautiful too.
On the sides of it, it was kind of like a wrapped countertop, or not countertop, but wrapped cabinets.
Yeah, so I would say from beauty and structure and just letting lots of light in, that was my favorite design by far. But I did have one major problem with it is functionality. So the storage was not great. They went
the pantry,
with no upper cabinets next to the stove. Yeah. They just had shelves on either side, which seems to be the trend these days. We see this in houses all the time. But it's kind of handy to have a cupboard next to your stove if you're cooking, because you might want to have spices or cooking oil, whatever that's easily within reach, and not have to reach down into a cupboard to get them. So I didn't love that. From an aesthetic point of view, it was great. But from a practical point of view, having some cupboards there would have been good. And then the pantry was pretty small. The storage there was
the cabinets in there.
The
were
cabinets
really
were
shallow.
Really shallow. So
I think they look pretty narrow too. It's kind of hard to tell because you can't really see them straight on.
So the pantry looked nice, and they had that pretty brass sink in the pantry. But was it sufficient for the storage you would need in that house? So that's really my biggest beef, I guess, with that design was probably just
you can
the
always
lack
put
of
plastic storage up on the shelving. So just a slight correction. It wasn't one big door; it was two big doors because there was like a post between them.
But it looked like sort of a wall.
Oh, it looked like a wall of windows. It was just beautiful. Yeah, I agree. That was a great decision. They were also the only team that didn't have wood on the ceiling, which I think worked. And again, because they had the beam that kind of helped to define the space, the way things were staged looked really nice. So I think that they really did a very good job and all of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then we have the other team that moved things around. And I would say instead of making the space seem bigger, which Michelle and Allison did, they sort of cut their space into smaller sections, which had the impact of, I think the judge was right. It made the overall space seem smaller.
I think it might have come down to staging. Mm-hmm. Because when they were showing other people in their living area, they had like 2 chairs and a table. Mm-hmm. And I think for Team Aloha, they had like a couch and a couple of chairs, and a table. I think they overstaged it, and I think that made it look bad. It's interesting how they did make the choice of putting the dining room kind of, since they put the kitchen more towards the back of the house, towards the view, the dining room was more towards the center of the house, and the judge didn't like that and thought it made it feel small. And yeah, again, I mean, they had a huge table. Some of these other people, the dining room tables weren't that big.
No.
So I think staging went against them there. They also put all of that artwork on the wall next to the dining table, which I think also causes the space to feel very small.
Yeah, they would have been better with just like one big art piece rather than that collage of lots of different pictures, I think.
It'd been a lot easier to put up. It would have looked better.
Yeah.
Probably cost less, taken less time. There are lots of things that that would have been better. I think that's an interesting question of how do you get the living spaces and the kitchen more up. They did have the pass-through window.
Now that was a great
awesome.
feature. That was really smart.
Which you couldn't do unless you had the kitchen up at the front, or back. So I think they made some smart choices, and I think again, you could come back to their lack of experience in being on a show like this, because they did it. And I truly believe they did this the way they would have done it if they were building the house for one of their customers. Mm-hmm. The family's going to want 10 seats at the dining room table, so they get a dining room table that can support 10 seats, and not worried about the aesthetic of, I need to make this look right for the judging, right? So I think that might be one place where they kind of did a misstep, and I think their biggest problem was staging.
Okay. All right. Well, that's an interesting take. I might have to watch it a third time and look out for the staging.
Oh boy. Well, the other mistake they made, I guess this is the team that had a different backsplash than their countertop, and they did that to quote unquote save money. But I don't think at the end they saved that much money by doing it. They stayed within their $6,500.
No. Their budget was $100,000.
Were they the?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They were one of the teams that moved it. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And they, I guess they also had accordion folding door and the pass-through window. So I did really love that they made use of the view. Mm-hmm. They made use of the balcony, and they also had really nice cabinets, two-tone cabinets, floor to ceiling.
Oh, right, the two-tone cabinets. It did look good. And then they put wood on the ceiling, and it was in a herringbone pattern, and that, I think that looked really good too. With my other notes, they did go with the hidden door to the pantry, which the judge liked, and I guess that way it just kind of looks more like a wall.
Yeah, they did that, and also Chelsea and Cole did that. So that must be. I'm sure that's the new trend.
Well, we
saw
that.
Hidden doors last year.
There were hidden doors all last season too.
And call me crazy. I want to know where the door is so I can figure out where I'm going. I'm not sure what the deal is with all the hidden doors, but yeah.
The other thing that I noticed was that in the shelving that they put around the fireplace, they did have those under shelf lights.
Yes, that was nice. That
looked
was a
really
good
nice.
feature.
It didn't get pointed out, but you kind of saw it when they were doing their staging.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that kind of gives us an overview of the designs. Let's move on to the judging. And so the judge this week was Bobby Burke from the new edition of Queer Eye, not the OG Queer Eye. And I liked him as a judge. He was very positive, seemed like, found good in things, and he had I thought good critiques of the designs that made sense. So I thought he was a good choice.
Yeah, we watched a few episodes of that, and it's hard to compete with Tom from the first rendition of Queer Eye, because he was just everything you'd want out of an interior designer. But yeah, I thought he did pretty good on the show, and he was definitely very positive and put things in good spin, had good justifications for what he was talking about. I thought he did well. Yeah. Huh.
So he seemed to like all the designs. He walked into everyone, and he was impressed. I would say the specific critiques that he had for the modern farmhouse, which is John and Jordan, he didn't love how many lights they had. He thought it looked like a lighting store, and I can agree that did look a little cluttered. Yeah,
they had 4. They had 2 over each of the islands, which, maybe they didn't need 4.
He liked their use of stone and the fact that they used similar colors but different textures, and the stone on the wall and the stone on the counter,
Right.
and then the stone in the fireplace all had the same basic color, but they were slightly different, so it wasn't too matchy-matchy. But it made the whole area look unified, which I thought was a good critique.
Yeah, I thought he gave some pretty good feedback, and they seemed to take it well. They also had a double oven, right? They had a double oven. Yeah.
And
We
the
liked
one
that.
thing that he didn't like was how they handled the design challenge, which basically
geez.
they took a door and hung it on the wall. So I think their original plan was to put hooks on that so you could hang things on that. But given the size of their pantry, that was a dumb idea because every time you walk in, you'd bump into those hooks and knock things off. So, it didn't make a lot of sense just to hang that door there. And even their idea of putting hooks there so you could hang things on there, I'm not sure that would have been a winning idea either.
It was just overall a terrible idea. I thought it was interesting because we not really that familiar with Jordan, and not that really familiar with John either way. But you have seen the episodes of Farmhouse Fixer. They say that was it Jordan brings well, it's on the other page, a modern style, and so John brings the farmhouse. That's why they call their team Modern Farmhouse. But I thought it interesting that the modern style guy thought, hey, let's take this farmhouse door and mount it to the wall sideways and call it a feature.
Well, it's a good thing he's not the farmhouse guy because he does not seem to know how to use rustic very well.
No, they just seem befuddled by that whole challenge.
Yeah. So the judge did like how Cole and Chelsea approached the challenge.
Yeah,
So
he actually liked the black.
yeah, he liked the black, and they made this wine rack, which I did not think was all that great. But when you open the pantry door, they made a wine rack out of the rustic wood, and Bobby kept saying, "Oh, this is great! I don't have to reach. I don't want to have to reach to get my wine." But I don't know. I think maybe he was just trying to find something to love about it, because I mean, anyone who likes wine, that was not a great way to store it. And I mean, at least they weren't using wine as decoration, so I'll give them points for that. But it was okay, but he just kept raving about this wine rack, and I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not sure how much wine you could store in it, because basically it looked like I don't know, maybe a 6 by 6 inch hole, like 14 times or something like that. It looked like they had one bottle, and you wouldn't have, if there was more than one bottle in there, I don't think you'd have it. You'd have to pull a couple of bottles out. It was something to do. I think. Actually, their other use of the chalet stuff was really good. I think using it as siding on the fireplace, that worked out pretty well. So I think this really was kind of a wasted effort.
Yeah, well, the judge liked it. So
The judge,
I don't know.
yeah,
They
judge
might have got
liked it, but
points for creativity
they did not
there.
win.
They did not win. Yes. The one thing he really had a problem with was that the doors, the arch doors they put on, were too short.
Yeah.
And he just felt that proportionally that was a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving along to Michelle and Allison, I really didn't know if they were going to win, because he did love the green and loved the arch and the doors and the things that basically we said we loved about it. But he was very particular. He did not like the green sink with the green tile. That was a problem. And I'm just trying to check my notes. There was something else he
hated the
didn't
pantry.
like. Did not like the pantry, yes.
Yep. He did like the fireplace. He liked the large doors, the built-in bench seat, which they also had with the dining room table.
And he liked how they used the rustic wood from the chalet as a fascia. Is that the right way to say it? Fascia in front of the shelves on the fireplace. And that did look good.
Oh, right. Yeah. And he liked the brass on the island. Yeah, I guess he has that in his house. So
So yeah, it's like judges are people just like me and Steven. We like the things that we have and we pick. So he liked the pass through in the kitchen of the next house we're going to talk about because he has a pass through.
Yep.
He liked the brass island because he has a brass island. So anytime really, if you knew who the judge is, the way to win is go and find photos of their house and just do things like they have, and then for sure they're going to love it, right? Because it's what they've picked for themselves.
Yeah. Speaking of the judges, they did have that little interlude where all the teams have to come out and interact, which they did some last season, which I think is contrived and
we
silly.
skipped that part in our recap unless it's relevant to the design.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time. Oh, here you are spending an hour standing around taking pictures of each
The
other.
show wants to introduce you to the personality of the teams, and they want us to really be on the veterans versus the rookies team. So it's part of it's TV magic. Okay, so finally, Team Aloha. He did really like the floor-to-ceiling cabinets. He liked the two-tone cabinets. He really loved the pass-through, as I just said. But he felt that they had too many materials in the kitchen. And also he did not like the dining room, the way they sort of created
Tucked
a
it.
wall on the side of the kitchen there and tucked the dining room in. He felt that made it feel small.
Yeah, 11. He said there were 11 different materials in the kitchen, which was too many. He said it makes the place feel small, which just reminded me of when, of our designer that you can't have more than 3. That's where you must use floor tile on the walls in your shower.
We had a knockdown drag out with our
like,
designer.
okay,
over
11
our
sounds
shower.
like a lot.
Yeah,
I'll
11
say
would
11
be
sounds
a lot.
like a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's the judging. Was there anything else? What did they do what did Tristan and, they did the knife holder. And
the knife holder in the pantry. They had a nice pantry. Mm-hmm. They built out a pantry and they had appliances in it and a small dishwasher and.
Yeah, but they lost living space by building that big pantry.
They did
That's
lose
the
living
thing.
space for that.
Yeah.
I think they.
And then they did
somewhere
the
else.
artwork from the corrugated metal on the chalet.
Right.
I'm just not a huge fan of designer created artwork. Like if I bought that house, I haven't seen a single piece of designer created artwork in any house, including those guys last year who were really talented artists that I wouldn't immediately take down.
Right.
Yeah, why spend your time creating artwork? But I guess they had to do something for the design challenge.
Yeah, and again, they must have felt like just making the knife block wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
It didn't take them that long to do it. And it did kind of look now kind of in the shape of a mountains with, I guess, sun or a moon, depending upon how you want to look at it, over
It was
the
not
mountains.
the ugliest created artwork.
It was not the
that I've
ugliest
seen.
created art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the ugliest.
Okay. All right. So do we want to talk about who the judges chose? Yeah. Well, I guess we've kind of given it away, right?
I think we already did. Yeah.
Allison and Michelle won.
When you say,
yeah.
I wasn't sure that he was actually going to say they were the winners.
Okay, so
gives it away.
Allison and Michelle won. Yay! I thought they had the best design, but they also spent the most money. So if you're going to spend $120,000
Yeah.
out of your $250,000 budget, you had better win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, they did supposedly had a problem with getting the countertop, right? And that added.
They had to get a marble countertop.
They wound up having to get a
instead.
marble in it. Then they added another $4,000 to their already bloated budget. Yeah. So they kind of got screwed there, but I guess that's just how it kind of goes. I guess we couldn't discuss whether or not we think that really happened on the show or all made for TV, because remember the whole thing with Evan and Keith last year with wanting that lighted backsplash and then suddenly finding out that it was as much as they had for a budget.
I think some of these materials issues might happen, but they might not happen that week.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's my belief
Yeah.
is that they go in, they do the designs, they order stuff, and maybe they do all the work in a week. But at some point between ordering and doing the work, they realize they've got a problem, and
Right.
they kind of stage these fakey phone calls saying, "Oh no, they can't
Right.
make this. What are we going to do?" So
Yeah.
that's of course. Let me just say, we are not affiliated with Rock the Block, HGTV. We are not contractors or designers. We are just basically guessing based on watching all these episodes very intently on what we think happens behind the
Right.
scenes.
Yep. And I was just thinking, when we were buying countertops, we went and we looked at countertops, and we could have bought one right then. So it's not like the materials, especially if you get materials that is fairly commonly used. It is fairly easy to get, and then of course it's got to be measured out and cut. But I think all of these countertops were smaller than the size of a slab. So
Yeah, I guess they could have done it in a week, right?
Yeah.
They could get priority for fabrication, given that they're on the show.
I mean, it had to be, local.
Yeah.
Whatever they were getting had to be local, and the fabricators had to be available. And I guess that is one. You get the countertops, your cabinets. You're still going to wait until you get the cabinets in before you do the measurements and cut. So all of the marble and quartz and all that material would be getting cut on site, or at least after the show starts, because you cut it beforehand, you could get really have some problems with it since it's not installed, right? I mean, so I think that's reasonable that they're cutting the stuff on site.
Okay. All right. Well, you've changed my mind. I think maybe that is what happened.
Well, maybe. I'm not sure. I think it was made for TV.
Okay.
I think it was made for TV, but.
Well, Stephen, what do you think? Did the right team win?
I think it's a tough call. You want to look at appraised value and say that the house that Allison and Michelle made is beautiful, but not everybody's going to walk in there and want that bright green appliances and stuff. So I think from that standpoint, you're kind of could be limiting their overall appraised value. Now, granted, I mean that was only part of it. Creativity and design. The archway was definitely better, and the judge kind of called out that they were the only ones that didn't go with earth tones, and so therefore they must win. And I think that's not. That's not quite right, but
well, I have one judging criteria: which place would I want in my house, right? And so definitely, from an aesthetic point of view, Allison and Michelle's was hands away. What I liked from a flow, from a beauty, everything else. I did have a problem with the storage, but that wouldn't. I probably still would give them the win.
Yeah. I would like to get the pantry from one place and the wide open doors from another and the pass through from the third. I did love all the wood and stuff that the J&J, Old Kids on the Block.
I love that name for that team, Old Kids on the Block.
Old Kids on the Block. I really kind of... I'll say, if they didn't have that stupid second table that looked like they got it from the side of the road somebody was done using it, they might have overall had and didn't put the stupid thing on the wall, the door on the wall. I think they were right up there. I think that some of these teams made just a couple of slight mistakes. I really wanted to like Team Aloha's. The one I didn't want to, it was always going to be on my bottom was the CNC Music Factory.
Team Paint It Black.
Team Paint It Black, yeah, because it's just not. That's another aesthetic that's going to be
for
that's
me,
gonna be hard.
I mean,
hard.
that would be. I had them on the bottom, and no offense, I'm not in love with all the dark tones and taking light away from the house. That just would not be what I would do. And then I did agree that the doors were small, and they didn't maximize the view and the balcony like some other teams did.
They definitely did not win.
Yeah,
they were not a team that won.
I would probably, if I had to pick, I'd probably give second place to Team Aloha, simply because I really did like that pass through. I thought, and I liked the accordion doors on the other side.
The pantry was great,
but it was close because I thought J&J's was very beautiful too, and I would be able to live in that space. Like I say, I would get rid of the second island, but that's a pretty easy fix.
That's easy. Just carry it to another room and use it as a drawing table. I mean, it's not an island. Islands, I thought, had to be affixed to the ground. Maybe they put a couple nails in it. I don't know, but.
So at the end of the week, we have Team J&J has spent $65,000. Team CNC has spent $80,000. Team Aloha has spent $100,000. And Team Allison and Michelle has spent a whopping total of $120,000. So they got the win, but they paid for it.
Paid for it.
We will see how. But they did get an extra $3,000. So
that makes up for overspending by $60K.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Another 20 weeks of this, and they'll be even.
So we'll see how this goes going forward. But overall, I thought it was a great episode. I thought all the teams did a good job. The judge was good, and I'm just really excited to have the show back on TV again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the 1 hour episode. It was just wow. There was so much going on.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah.
And what space? I bet they do master bedroom next. That's my bet. What do you think?
I don't know. Let's see. Other judges include the next other judges include Mina from Good Bones, whatever her last name is, and Jasmine. That was the first floor areas: entry, mudroom, powder room, and bath and den. They didn't say.
Yeah.
But whenever they do the commercials and they show judges, they always show Mina and Jasmine first. So maybe that's a preview that's what they're going to do next. But I don't know. I don't feel like next week would be master or primary, whatever it's called these days. I think that seems like they ought to push that. We had the big opening week with 2 hours,
and maybe do the first floor rooms next. Yeah.
Yeah, and then do the master or primary later. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
all right.
I guess we'll see.
Well, Stephen, it's great to be back on the podcast with you. And thanks you guys very much for listening. We will be back again next week with episode 2 of Rock the Block.